The night was cold, the kind that pierced through even the heaviest coats. The city lights flickered on wet pavements after a light drizzle, and footsteps hurried along, everyone eager to get back to their warm homes. But not everyone had one. "Daddy, why is she sleeping here?" The little voice came from Emily, a 7-year-old girl with wide eyes that saw the world with more honesty than adults ever dared to. Her tiny hand tugged on her father's coat, pointing toward the figure curled up on a park bench under a torn blanket. The girl looked fragile, no older than 12, her face streaked with dirt and exhaustion, her thin frame trembling in the night air. Richard Carter, a self-made millionaire and single father, froze at his daughter's question. For years, he had walked past scenes like this without stopping, burying himself in his work, his wealth, and the walls he had built around his heart after losing his wife. But now, with Emily looking up at him with pure innocence, demanding an answer he couldn't hide behind business logic or adult excuses, Richard felt something stir deep inside. She doesn't have a home, sweetheart," Richard finally said, his voice heavy. Emily frowned. "But that's not fair. We have a big house. She should come with us." Richard knelt down, placing his hands gently on Emily's shoulders. "It's not that simple," but Emily's eyes glistened with tears. "Please, Daddy, what if that was me? Would you leave me out here?" The question sliced through him. His chest tightened as he remembered the promise he'd made to his late wife, that he would protect Emily from every storm. And now, here was another child, lost in her own storm, with no one to shield her. Richard sighed deeply, looking at the frail girl on the bench. Something about her vulnerability, the way she hugged herself tightly, reminded him too much of Emily. Slowly, he approached. "Hey there," Richard said softly, careful not to startle her. "Are you okay?" The girl's eyes darted open, panicked. She sat up quickly, clutching her torn blanket. "I'm fine. Please, don't call the police. I'll leave." His heart broke at her fear. No, it's okay. We're not here to hurt you." He gestured toward Emily, who was peeking shyly from behind him. "This is my daughter. She just wanted to make sure you're all right." The girl's eyes softened at the sight of Emily, but her voice trembled. I don't need help." Richard could see the pride in her words, but also the desperation. "When was the last time you ate?" Silence. Richard sighed and extended his hand. "Come on, at least let us get you something warm to eat." Her eyes hesitated, but the hunger in her expression betrayed her. Slowly, cautiously, she nodded. That night, instead of dropping her off at a diner, Richard drove her home. Emily had insisted, sitting in the backseat with the girl, chattering away about her favorite cartoons as if they'd been friends forever. The girl, who finally introduced herself as Lily, managed a small smile, her first in what looked like weeks. Richard's mansion stood tall against the night sky, a stark contrast to the park bench Lily had been sleeping on. As they walked inside, Lily's eyes widened in awe. She tried to hide it, but Richard noticed how her fingers brushed lightly against the polished railing, the framed family photos, the warmth that radiated through every room. "You can stay in the guest room tonight," Richard said gently. "Tomorrow, we'll figure things out." But that night, Richard couldn't sleep. He sat in his study, staring at the fireplace, haunted by questions. Where were her parents? Why was she alone? And why did Emily's words keep echoing in his mind? What if that was me? The next morning, Richard found Lily in the kitchen. With Emily. Emily was giggling as Lily taught her how to make scrambled eggs, the way my mom used to. The mention of her mom caught Richard's attention. Quietly, he sat down at the table. "Lily," he said softly, "can you tell me what happened? Why you were out there alone?" Lily's fork froze mid-air. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, in a trembling voice, she began. Her mother had died 2 years ago from cancer. Her father, unable to cope, turned to alcohol. One night, after a violent outburst, Lily ran. She had been on her own ever since, drifting between shelters, park benches, and abandoned buildings. Richard's chest tightened as he listened. The pain in her words was too raw, too familiar. He had drowned himself in work after his wife's death, but at least he'd had Emily to anchor him. Lily had no one. Over the following weeks, Richard tried to help Lily. He contacted social services, but Emily cried at the thought of Lily being sent to a shelter. "She belongs here, Daddy," she insisted. And deep down, Richard agreed. But it wasn't easy. Lily struggled to adjust to the comforts of their home. She would hide food in her room, afraid it might disappear. She flinched at loud noises. She avoided eye contact with strangers. Emily, in her innocence, didn't understand at first and sometimes grew frustrated when Lily didn't want to play. Richard also faced challenges. He was used to solving business problems with money and strategy, but this wasn't a deal he could close with a check. He had to learn patience, empathy, and how to become a father figure not just to Emily, but now to Lily too. There were setbacks. One night, Richard caught Lily sneaking out with a backpack of stolen food from the pantry. She broke down, sobbing, apologizing over and over. Richard didn't scold her. Instead, he held her, realizing trust was something that would take time. The turning point came months later during Emily's school play. Richard and Lily sat in the audience, waiting eagerly. When Emily walked on stage in her princess costume, she spotted them both and beamed. But as the play went on, Lily began trembling. Seeing the families cheering for their children brought back painful memories. She whispered, "I shouldn't be here. This isn't my family." Richard turned to her, his eyes firm but kind. "Lily, family isn't just about blood. It's about love. And whether you believe it or not, you are part of this family now." Tears streamed down her cheeks. For the first time, Lily leaned into him, letting herself be held. Not long after, Richard received a call. Lily's biological father had been located. Social services wanted to arrange a meeting. Richard's heart sank. He worried about losing her, but he also knew Lily deserved closure. The reunion was heartbreaking. Her father was a broken man, still battling addiction. He wept when he saw her, apologizing for the pain he had caused. Lily listened quietly, then whispered, "I forgive you. But I can't go back." It was a painful but freeing moment. With her father's blessing, Richard began the process of adopting Lily. The day the adoption papers were finalized, Richard stood in court with both Emily and Lily by his side. The judge looked at him with a smile. "Mr. Carter, are you prepared to raise this child as your own?" Richard's voice cracked with emotion. "I already do." Lily's hand slipped into his. For the first time, she didn't look afraid. She looked home. Years later, Richard often thought back to that cold night when Emily tugged his sleeve and asked, "Daddy, why is she sleeping here?" That single question had changed everything. It reminded him, and everyone who heard their story, that sometimes, the smallest acts of compassion can alter the course of someone's life. Forever, wealth, success, and comfort meant little compared to the power of love, empathy, and the courage to open your heart to someone in need. And so, their home was no longer just a mansion. It was a place of healing, laughter, and second chances, a family not bound by blood, but by love stronger than anything life had tried to break.